The Galactic Council's grand chamber wasn't designed for laughter. With its soaring crystal spires and gravitas-inducing quantum lighting, the space practically demanded serious diplomatic discourse and weighty political debate. That's why Earth's representative, Frankie Martinez, was doing her level best to maintain composure while biting the inside of her cheek so hard she was probably drawing blood. Honorable Representatives Council Chair Zorp Teth's tentacles rippled with concern as they addressed the assembly. We have gathered today to discuss a matter of utmost importance regarding our newest member species. Their bioluminescent spots pulsed a gentle shade of worried mauve. Our routine cultural survey has uncovered some disturbing statistics about Earth's recreational activities. Frankie shifted in her hover seat, trying to school her features into something appropriately diplomatic. She knew exactly where this was going. The annual report on Earth's sporting events had just been submitted, and she'd been betting her entire month's coffee ration on how long it would take for this particular question to arise. Sports Minister Clix, a towering arthropoid, whose species communicated through interpretive dance and crystalline growths, skittered forward. Their analysis crystals chimed in harmonic distress as they projected a holographic display of Earth's various combat sports into the chamber's center. Esteemed colleagues, Clix's translator hummed. Our research indicates that humans have developed approximately 157 distinct methods of engaging in recreational combat. This number increases to 312 when including regional variations and what they call mixed martial arts. The minister's antennae twitched. We have documented everything from boxing, where humans repeatedly strike each other's cranial regions, to capoeira, which appears to be a devastating combination of combat and dancing. A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled representatives. The delegate from Proxima Centauri B fainted, their cloud-like form dissipating briefly before being caught in their containment field. Zorp Teth's tentacles curled inward, a sign of deep distress in their species. Representative Martinez, we must ask, why does your species maintain so many different ways to punch each other? Frankie coughed. Using the moment to compose herself, she'd prepared for this, but the genuine concern in the council chair's voice almost set her off again. How do you explain to a galactic community of mostly peaceful species that humans just really enjoyed the art of hitting things? Honorable Chair. She began, her voice steady despite the laughter threatening to bubble up. I believe there may be some cultural misunderstanding here. These activities are not, as you might think, preparation for warfare or signs of inherent violence. They're sports, games, recreational activities that promote physical fitness, mental discipline, and cultural exchange. Cultural exchange, Clix's crystals chimed in confusion. Through facial percussion. Well, yes, Frankie replied, warming to her topic. Take Brazilian jiu-jitsu, for example. It's not just about grappling, it's about strategy, respect, and building community. Or consider the way of the sword in kendo, which... There are variants involving swords. Zorp Teth's spots flashed emergency crimson. Several more delegates swooned. The representative from Europa dove under their desk, sending a small tidal wave of their native ocean sloshing over the railings. Frankie realized she might have said too much too soon. This was going to be a long day in the council chamber, and she was starting to wish she'd brought popcorn. The galaxy was about to learn that when it came to recreational combat, humanity had turned it into an art form, several art forms actually, and explaining why that was a good thing. Well, that was going to be interesting. She grinned. At least it wouldn't be boring. Doug the diplomat Henderson had never planned on being Earth's first combat sports ambassador. Back during humanity's initial contact with the galactic community, he'd just happened to be watching a UFC match when the aliens arrived at his sports bar in Milwaukee. The resulting cultural exchange had gone down in history as both a diplomatic breakthrough and a potential interstellar incident. So you're telling me the lead cultural observer X-Tix had said, their crystalline eye stalks trembling, that these two humans are not mortal enemies? Doug had taken another sip of his beer, watching Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier duke it out on the holo screen. Nah, they'll probably grab a beer together after. Well, maybe not those two specifically, but most fighters do. The concept had nearly fried X-Tix's neural matrix. Now, 10 years later, Frankie found herself explaining the same concept to the Galactic Council, using Doug's infamous first contact as a reference point. She pulled up the historical footage, trying not to smirk as the council chamber erupted in gasps and concerned chirping. As you can see, she gestured to the holographic display, This was humanity's first opportunity to showcase our combat sports to the galactic community. And yes, Ambassador X-Tix did need those replacement eye stalks, but that was from shock, not violence. Clix's analysis crystals chimed in what might have been skepticism. But this was just one form of recreational combat. Our surveys have documented countless others. What about this fencing combat with primitive metal spears? Technically, they're called epis, foils or sabers, Frankie corrected, immediately regretting it as several delegates' biological warning colors began to strobe. You have different categories of spears. Zorp-Teth's tentacles tied themselves in a literal knot of distress. Maybe we should move on to wrestling, Frankie suggested brightly. The holographic display shifted to show a Greco-Roman wrestling match. The European delegate, who had just emerged from under their desk, promptly dove back under it, sloshing more water across the chamber floor. As you can observe, Frankie pressed on, trying to sound professional. Wrestling is about technique, leverage, and... They re-trying to break each other in half, shrieked a horrified representative from Alpha Centauri, their gaseous form condensing in shock. No, they're just... grappling. See? They're fine. They're smiling, Frankie pointed to the athletes' faces. This is fun for them. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft plink of Clix's distress crystals hitting the chamber floor. Fun, Zorp-Teth repeated the word, as if it might bite them. Representative Martinez, your species finds the systematic application of joint locks fun. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds bad, Frankie admitted. But consider this, every single one of these sports has rules, regulations, and most importantly, respect between participants. It's not about hurting each other, it's about testing limits, building character, and, okay, maybe occasionally seeing who can throw whom the furthest, but in a friendly way. The council's collective response suggested they weren't buying it. Frankie could practically see the wheels turning in their various biological equivalents of brains. Somewhere, she knew, someone was probably already drafting a motion to study humans for signs of collective insanity. She was right. Ambassador Nixel-8, known throughout the galaxy for their paranoid threat assessments, was already scribbling furiously on their quantum tablet. The motion would likely read something like investigation into human combat tendencies and their potential threat to galactic peace. The fact that they were using their emergency red quantum ink suggested this was going to be even more entertaining than Frankie had anticipated. Maybe she should have mentioned the existence of hockey later. Much later. The classified report landed on Zorp-Teth's desk with all the subtlety of a quantum torpedo. Ambassador Nixel-8's research team had spent 3 months studying human combat sports, and their conclusions were concerning. They start training their young as early as 4 Earth years old, Nixel-8 announced to the emergency council session, their metallic scales rattling with anxiety. In facilities they call dojos and gymnasiums, our surveillance footage shows small humans, barely past their initial growth phase, engaging in organized combat training. The holographic display showed a children's karate class in Nebraska. 20 kids in white uniforms were punching the air and occasionally falling over their own feet. Monsters, shouted someone from the back of the chamber. Those are Girl Scouts, Frankie muttered under her breath. They're learning self-defense and earning their karate badges, but nobody was listening to her anymore. Nixel-8 continued, their scales now a particularly alarmed shade of copper. We've discovered something even more disturbing. Humans have facilities where they combine combat with artistic expression. Observe this footage from what they call a dance studio. The display shifted to show a kickboxing cardio class happening next door to a ballet lesson. Through some unfortunate timing and camera angle, it appeared as though the ballet dancers were aggressively attacking invisible opponents, while the kickboxers performed a violent rendition of Swan Lake. They've militarized their art forms. Clix's crystals were now vibrating at a frequency that was starting to crack the chamber's windows. Even their cultural expressions are violent. Frankie raised her hand. I can explain. And that's not all. Nixel-8 was on a roll now. We've uncovered evidence of massive combat gatherings they call tournaments. Thousands of humans gather to watch selected champions engage in ritual combat. The winners are awarded decorative belts and trophies, clearly symbols of their warrior status. The chamber erupted in chaos. The European delegate had given up on hiding under their desk and was now attempting to evolve gills to survive in their spilled water puddle. 3 gaseous representatives had merged into a single worried cloud. Clix's crystals were playing what sounded suspiciously like funeral dirges. If I could just, Frankie tried again. Furthermore, Nixel 8 pressed on, their scales now practically strobing. They broadcast these events globally. Our analysts estimate that millions of humans watch these displays of combat prowess. They even pay significant currency for the privilege. Pay-per-view is hardly a sign of Frankie's reasonable explanation was drowned out by the sound of someone initiating emergency evacuation protocols. Zork-Teth's tentacles were now so tightly knotted they resembled a plate of alien spaghetti. Representative Martinez, in light of this evidence, we must ask, is Earth preparing for galactic conquest? Frankie stared at them, blinked, stared some more. Then, despite her best diplomatic training, she did the one thing you should never do during a serious galactic security crisis. She laughed. Not just a diplomatic chuckle or a polite titter. This was a full-blown, tears streaming down her face, barely able to breathe laugh that echoed through the chamber like a sonic boom. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the merged worry cloud had stopped quivering. "Oh stars," Frankie wheezed, trying to catch her breath. "You really think, because of UFC and karate classes, that where she dissolved into giggles again?" Nixel 8's scales shifted to a confused beige. "You mean, these are not military training programs?" "No," Frankie managed between laughs. They're just... Look, maybe we need a different approach here. How about this? Why don't we send someone to actually participate in one of these activities? See for themselves what it's really about." The council chamber went so quiet you could hear Clix's crystals growing. Participate. Zork-Teth's tentacles began slowly unknotting themselves. "You would allow a council representative to join these combat rituals?" "Absolutely," Frankie said, finally regaining her composure. "In fact, I know just the place to start. Something gentle, traditional, perfect for a first-time experience." And that's how poor Pit-Pop, the council's most junior researcher, found themselves signed up for their first judo class. In retrospect, maybe they should have mentioned their species' lack of bones. Pit-Pop hadn't wanted to be a scientific investigator of human combat rituals. They'd been perfectly happy in their previous assignment studying Earth's moss varieties. Moss was nice, predictable. It didn't try to throw you over its shoulder. "Remember," Frankie said, helping adjust Pit-Pop's specially designed judo gi around their gelatinous form, "the most important thing is to tap out if you feel uncomfortable." Tap out. Pit-Pop's translation matrix struggled with the concept. "Yes, like this," Frankie demonstrated on the mat. "It means stop, I give up, but, and this is the important part, it's completely okay to do it. There's no shame in it." Pit-Pop's upper pseudopods wiggled in confusion. On their homeworld, giving up was considered a sign of poor molecular cohesion. The judo instructor, Master Chen, approached them with a welcoming smile. He'd been briefed about his unusual new student and had promised to make this first class especially gentle, ready to learn about the gentle way. Gentle. Way. Pit-Pop's translucent form rippled hopefully. "This combat ritual is gentle." "Judo means the gentle way in Japanese," Master Chen explained. "It's about using your opponent's force against them, rather than applying force yourself." Pit-Pop brightened literally, their bioluminescent core glowing with relief. They could handle gentle. Gentle was good. Gentle was safe. 20 minutes later, Pit-Pop learned that humans had a very different definition of gentle. The problem wasn't the throws themselves. Being essentially a self-aware water balloon had its advantages when it came to falling. No, the problem came during their first attempt at throwing their partner, a friendly blue belt named Miguel. "Okay, just grip here and here," Master Chen demonstrated, "then pivot and..." Pit-Pop, eager to prove themselves a good student, gripped and pivoted exactly as shown. What nobody had counted on was their species' natural adhesive properties. Miguel, instead of being thrown normally, found himself stuck to Pit-Pop's pseudopods as they spun. What followed could only be described as a human alien cartwheel across the dojo. "Release. Release," Frankie called out. But Pit-Pop's translator had chosen that exact moment to buffer. 3 rolls and a surprisingly graceful flip later, Miguel landed safely on the mat, covered in a thin film of alien mucus, but otherwise unharmed. Pit-Pop, meanwhile, had accidentally absorbed half their GI and was rapidly changing colors in embarrassment. The dojo went silent. Then Miguel started laughing. "That was awesome," he exclaimed, getting up and bowing to Pit Pop. "I've never seen a throw like that before. You've got to teach me how you did the flip part." Pit Pop's embarrassed purple faded to a confused blue. "You are not angry about the adhesive incident?" "Are you kidding? That was the coolest thing I've seen all week. Hey, Master Chen, can Pit Pop and I work together on developing some new techniques? Their unique abilities could revolutionize the sport." And just like that, something clicked in Pit Pop's gelatinous brain. This wasn't about violence or combat preparation. This was about learning, adaptation, and fun. The next hour passed in a blur of modified throws, experimental techniques, and what would later be dubbed the elastic rebound counter, which only worked if your sparring partner was made of living jelly. By the end of the class, Pit Pop had not only learned the basics of judo, but had helped create an entirely new subset of the sport. The video of their training session, uploaded to Galactic Tube under the title First Alien Judo Master, watched till the end, broke every known record for views across 17 star systems. The comments section was filled with aliens asking where they could find their nearest dojo. Pit Pop's official report to the council read, "Simply humans don't practice combat sports to prepare for war. They do it to make friends." They attached a postscript also, requesting permanent reassignment to Earth Sports and Recreation Research Division. "Moss is boring now." Frankie, reading the report, allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 of Operation Make the Galaxy Understand Humans was complete. Now came the hard part, explaining why humans had invented parkour. The first intergalactic friendly games began, appropriately enough, with a minor diplomatic incident. The Arcturian delegation had misunderstood the concept of wrestling singlets and showed up wearing ceremonial battle armor made of crystallized starlight. The Europans thought swimming pool meant new colony location, and someone had foolishly mentioned mixed martial arts to the hive mind of Beta Reticuli, leading to a lengthy explanation about why using all 6 arms simultaneously would be considered an unfair advantage. "This is fine," Frankie muttered to herself as she watched a Proximate Cloud attempt to master a karate chop. "This is totally fine." The games had been her idea, pitched to the council as a way to promote interspecies understanding through shared athletic experience. What she hadn't counted on was just how enthusiastically some species would embrace the concept. The Andromedans, for instance, had taken to Brazilian jiu-jitsu with alarming dedication. Their natural ability to extend their limbs to twice their normal length had led to the creation of an entirely new rulebook titled Standard and Non-Euclidean Grappling Regulations. Representative Martinez clicks skittered over, their crystals chiming with excitement rather than distress for once. You must observe this remarkable development. On the main mat, Master Chen was teaching a group of various species the basics of judo throws. Pit Pop, now officially the galaxy's first alien judo instructor, was demonstrating their signature move, which had been officially named the gelatinous flip. "Notice how the Venusian gas form is adapting the technique to their non-solid state," Clicks commented, analysis crystals sparkling. "Fascinating." Frankie watched as the Venusian, essentially a sentient purple fog bank, successfully executed a throw that looked more like an elaborate weather pattern than a martial arts move. Their opponent, a silicon-based lifeform from Rigel, seemed more impressed than defeated. In the corner, a group of Centaurians were learning boxing from Doug the Diplomat Henderson himself. Their natural four-armed advantage had been solved by having them wear special restraints on their secondary limbs, though they kept forgetting and accidentally throwing extra jabs. "Left hook," Doug called out. "No, your other left. No, your other left." The most surprising development had come from the hive mind of Beta Reticuli. After getting over their initial disappointment about the arm limitation rules, they had become absolutely fascinated by Tai Chi. The sight of 10,000 synchronized drones moving through flowing forms in perfect harmony had become the game's most popular demonstration event. "You know," Zorkteth said, their tentacles relaxed and flowing smoothly for the first time since the whole combat sports investigation began, "I believe we may have misunderstood something fundamental about human athletic pursuits." They were watching a peculiar scene. A human capoeira instructor was leading a mixed group of aliens through the basic movements. The Andromedans' extended limbs created beautiful arcs through the air, while the gaseous species added their own ethereal flow to the martial dance. Even the crystalline beings had found their rhythm, their facets catching the light in mesmerizing patterns as they moved. Oh, Frankie tried to keep the smugness out of her voice. How so? These activities. They're not about combat at all, are they? They're about Zorp-Teth spots pulsed thoughtfully, searching for the right word. Connection, Frankie supplied. They're about connecting with yourself, with others, with tradition and innovation all at once. Indeed, Zorp-Teth watched as a Regalian helped a Centaurian adjust their stance. Though I must admit I'm still somewhat concerned about this parkour concept you mentioned. Running up walls seems unnecessarily vertical. Frankie grinned. Just wait until you hear about competitive trampoline. The council chair's spots flashed alarm magenta for a moment before settling back to a calm blue. Perhaps we should focus on one cultural revelation at a time. On the main floor, the games continued. A Venusian fog bank was teaching a human how to throw a punch with no solid form. 3 Andromedans had accidentally tied themselves together attempting a complex Brazilian jiu-jitsu move. Pit-Pop was demonstrating how to bow without a fixed spine. And everywhere, people, human and alien alike, were learning, laughing, and growing together through the universal language of controlled combat. You know what this means, don't you? Clix's crystals chimed questioningly. That we need to build bigger dojos, Frankie suggested. Too. But more importantly, Clix's analysis crystals sparkled with excitement. We're going to need a much bigger trophy cabinet for the next intergalactic games. 1 year after the first intergalactic friendly games, the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber looked very different. The once austere space now featured display cases showing off various medals, belts and trophies, including one that appeared to be made entirely of solidified gas, which occasionally leaked winner announcements in a squeaky voice. In conclusion, Frankie addressed the assembled representatives. The Earth Sports Exchange program has now established over 500 dojos across 3 galactic arms. We've certified instructors from 27 species, though we're still working on how to award belts to beings that exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The chamber, once a place of worried murmurs and diplomatic concern, now buzzed with excited discussion. Even Nixel-8 scales had settled into a comfortable bronze of acceptance. Additionally, Frankie continued, fighting to keep a straight face, we've had to add 3 new weight classes to accommodate species that can alter their mass at will, and the Andromedans have promised to stop using spatial manipulation during wrestling matches. A sheepish ripple passed through the Andromedan delegation. Apparently, folding spacetime to escape a headlock was still considered poor form. But perhaps most importantly, she gestured to a holographic display showing various training sessions across the galaxy. We've seen something remarkable happen. These sports, these primitive combat rituals as they were once called, have become bridges between cultures. The display showed a Europan teaching a human how to perform underwater Tai Chi. Next to them, a crystalline being and a gas cloud were practicing capoeira moves, their vastly different physical forms creating an oddly beautiful harmony. Humans don't have multiple combat sports because we're violent, Frankie explained. We have them because we're diverse. Different styles speak to different people or beings in different ways. It's not about the combat, it's about the connection. Pit-Pop, now sporting a black belt that they occasionally absorbed by accident, wobbled in agreement from their special non-stick seat. Their latest class had successfully taught zero-gravity judo to a group of space-dwelling energy beings. And yes, Frankie added, sometimes we punch each other for fun. But more importantly, we bow to each other before and after. We help each other up. We learn from each other's techniques and traditions. That's not preparing for war, that's building peace, one roundhouse kick at a time. Zorp-Teth spots pulsed with amused understanding. Though perhaps we should discuss this earth sport called hockey that I recently discovered. Let's save that for next year's session, Frankie quickly interjected. The galaxy might be ready for martial arts, but explaining why humans voluntarily ice skate into each other while chasing a small disc, that would require at least another decade of cultural exchange. Besides, she still hadn't told them about professional wrestling. Some revelations were best saved for when the council had developed a better understanding of human entertainment, and perhaps invested in stronger-smelling salts for the more easily startled delegates. In the meantime, Frankie had more pressing concerns. The hive mind of Beta Reticuli had just discovered parkour videos online, and 10,000 drones were eager to learn how to backflip off buildings. It was going to be another interesting day in human-alien relations. At least they hadn't discovered American Ninja Warrior yet. Probably. But she hoped.